March 19.
Okay, this is a interview at the Beltrone Living Center, Colony, New York.
Yes.
It is the 5th of August, 2003, approximately 2 p.m. The interviewers are Mike Russert and Wayne Clark. Could you give us your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
Well, my name was Edith Golant, G-O-L-A-N-T, Rothblatt. That's my married name.
Okay, when and where were you born, please?
Well, I was born in New York City a long time ago in
Okay.
1919,
Okay.
July 9th.
Now, what was your educational background prior to entering the military service?
Well, before I went into the service, all I had was high school. But since I came out of the service, I went back and I got my master's.
Oh, okay. All right. Do you recall where you were and what your reaction was when you heard about Pearl Harbor?
Oh yes, I came from Liberty, New York, and I heard about it. A fellow who was going to be my husband called me, and he said that that had happened, and he always kidded, you know, made jokes. So I thought he was kidding, but he said he wished he was.
Do you remember how you felt when you heard about this?
Well, I was a little confused at first because I didn't even know where Pearl Harbor
No,
was.
most people didn't.
Right, and I eventually learned all the problems and so forth.
Now, why did you decide to join the service?
Well, see, my husband was in the Coast Guard. No, he wasn't my husband yet. He was in the Coast Guard, and there was nothing much to do around, you know. And I had been working in New York City for Ernst and now they're Ernst and somebody else, Ernst and Ernst, I think. And it was boring. There was nobody around. It was quiet, you know. And of course, I thought I was going to win the war for everybody.
So that's why you picked the Coast Guard then?
Well, I picked the Coast Guard because he was in.
Okay. Where did you go for your induction and your training?
Well, they had a center at the Hunter College in the Bronx in New York, and I went there. And we were there 6 weeks, and then they shipped us out. And I thought I would go to some glamorous place, but they decided to send me to Washington, D.C., you know, that was the headquarters. And so I went where I was told.
Okay. What kind of basic training did you have?
Well, they taught us all the Navy terms, and they explained all about the situation of the Coast Guard and its relationship to the Navy, which during the war, it was really part of the Navy. And they taught us about that, and their Navy terms and all that.
Okay, what was your assignment when you were in Washington?
Well, they assigned me to Commander Carroll's office, which was the Office of Personnel and Budget. And he had me, I was doing allocation of enlisted personnel, which was not by name, but by a rank, you know, like a certain ship would have, say, a commander and some enlisted, and so I would do that.
Okay, what kind of, can you describe some of the other work you did or other assignments that you recall?
I don't remember.
I noticed you said here in this form that you would march on the White House grounds.
Yes, we did. We did. They had the girls all lined up, and we marched right behind the White House. It was not filled in at that time. Yeah, we would march. That was our practice. Yeah.
And you mentioned you would see the First Lady?
Oh, yes. In fact, I have a picture of her.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she watched us when we marched one day, and they allowed us to take pictures, so I took a picture.
Okay. Now, you talked about Commander Carroll. Who was that?
Well, Commander Carroll had been a pay clerk before the war. And as the war grew, his office grew, and he became a commander.
What was his duty?
Well, I think it was all, well, what he would do, for instance, with me, I would bring my figures up to him that I kept, you know, and he would take that to Congress and get funds for the Coast Guard.
Okay. All right. Now, were you married when you were in service?
No, before I went in, I wasn't, but in a year later, we were married. He was getting ready to ship out from Miami, and he called me, and we met in New York. Well, we met on the train, and we went to New York, and we were married there.
Did you have a military wedding, or?
No.
No.
Well, they wouldn't allow you to wear a gown. You had to get special permission, and this was all done so quickly that I just changed my shirt, got into my uniform, and got married.
Okay. Where was your husband assigned?
He was assigned to a ship called the USS Peoria, which was it was a frigate, which I don't know how if you know that, but it was a small ship that accompanied larger ships to Europe and back.
Okay. Now, I noticed you said that the one thing you recall that left the greatest impression was marching in a funeral procession?
Oh, yes. The Secretary of Navy died, and we were assigned to march in that procession. And I was always the small one, so I had the place, which was right down in, like right over the rail. They had a track there, and so I would walk up and down, you know, hop up and down as I marched.
Why did they leave such a great impression on you?
Well, then we went to the church for his funeral, and I was impressed, yeah.
You mentioned also that you did some work on classified documents and so on?
Yes. Part of my work was, like in the assignment of these personnel, was the ships and shore stations that had these personnel, and so some of the ships were listed as classified because you couldn't tell where they were going.
Okay. Now, why did you leave the service?
Well, after we were married, I became pregnant, and I got an honorable medical discharge, and I left the service.
Okay.
Well, they didn't want you to stay there, and let me tell you, you didn't want to stay there. Standing in line, you know, for the food, and smelling all that food made you sick to your
So when
stomach.
even if you were in Washington, you lived in a barracks, or?
Well, we lived at several places. First, we lived at a hotel near Union Station. Then we were moved to, eventually they built a barracks and we were in. And then when we were in there, I was married, and there were several other married girls that were permitted to move to the to Arlington Farms, which is a civilian girls unit. So we had one wing, and I had my own room and all that.
Okay. Did you ever, after you were discharged, did you ever make use of the GI Bill? Was that
Oh, yes.
open to you?
There was the 5220 club.
I was going to ask you about that,
Yes,
too.
well, I would stand in line. I was pregnant, you know, and I would stand in line and get my $20
How long did you do that?
for a year, 52
Okay.
weeks.
Did you use the GI Bill for education?
No, I didn't go back to school until my husband passed away. He died very young, and I was left alone, and had to go to work, and so I went back to school, and I got my credits for teaching, and then I got my master's.
Okay. Did you ever stay in contact with anyone that you served with?
Well, for years we would send Christmas cards back and forth, but I'm afraid that I'm probably one of the few survivors, so I don't hear from them anymore.
Did you ever join veterans organizations at all?
Oh, yes. I was the president of the Ladies Auxiliary of the Jewish War Veterans. I was part of the DAV and the American, the other organization. Oh, yes, I belong to all of them.
Okay. How do you think your time in service affected your life or changed your life?
Well, I would say it changed it a lot, because while I was there also, they offered you classes, you know, that you could take. And so I took several classes, and I learned that I'm not stupid, and so I had courage to go on.
And of course you met your husband too, right?
Well, no, I knew my husband.
Oh, you knew, oh, that's right, you
We were
said you
from
knew
a
him
small
before.
town,
Yes,
yes,
that's
we
right.
knew each other beforehand.
But he influenced you into joining the Coast Guard.
I don't think
In a
he had
way.
any influence, not directly. I just did it because he was there.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But actually, when you went in at that time, you could not marry into the same service. But then they changed the law.
Do you have anything else you'd like to add? Any other little stories you remember or anything?
Well, my brother was in the Coast Guard too.
Oh, really?
Yes, and well, my mother had 4 stars. My other brother was over in the Army in the Far East, and my brother and I and my husband were all in the Coast Guard. And I had this job at headquarters, and when they wanted to know where they were going to go to sea, you know, they happened to be both assigned to the same ship, and they wanted to know where they were going, and I found out where it was, and so off the cuff I told them where.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much for your interview.
Yeah, thank you.